Our next guest is Jonathan Weathington. Jonathan serves as the CEO of Shuckin Shack Oyster Bar, a fresh seafood and cold beer concept out of Wilmington, North Carolina. He's been featured on a number of covered magazines like FSR, appeared on Good Morning America, quoted and featured in numerous publications, including the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Nation's Restaurant News, and other local, regional, and national newspapers, journals, and magazines. Jonathan is known for his no-nonsense approach to true hospitality and business building. Help me welcome Jonathan to our show. Hello, Jonathan. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I wanted us to begin this by just having you walk us through your journey to becoming the CEO of the company you work for, and tell us the journey.
Sure. My journey's been an interesting one, and I think a lot of other executives would probably say something very similar in their own field. And I am not immune to that, I guess, interesting path. I Shuckin Shack, I'm not the founder of Shuckin Shack. So Shuckin Shack Oyster Bar is the company that I work for. And started with a single restaurant in 2007. A couple of friends of mine opened the restaurant. I was working a couple of doors down at another business, and that's how I met them. And one of the founders, I was actually working for him at that business while I was paying for grad school. So it was a good opportunity for me to just have a summer job, work as much as possible, try to squirrel away as much money as possible, paying for tuition and all of those things. And Shuck and Shack was opening basically at the same time. And so I actually got to see it quite literally come out of the ground during the construction process and then first couple excuse me, first couple of summers open. And so I always had this really unique viewpoint of Shuckin Shack because I started as a customer. I would just go in there and, you know, the business that I was working at didn't have air conditioning, and it was a summer job in the Carolina heat, and so it was often triple digits where I was working. And so in the dead part of the day, I would walk in there and grab a few minutes of air conditioning, and the bartenders would always give me water or a soda or whatever. And I would just honestly, I used it kind of as a breakaway from my job so that I could not roast outside. So that's how I became familiar with Shuck and Shack. And one of the unique things that I saw as the business grew in that first summer and then subsequently the following summers was that they just seemed to get everything right. And
Mm.
I think that was something that really attracted me to the brand. And so how I became CEO is like I said, interesting. I was going to grad school for international relations. I wanted to I wanted to be an ambassador. I wanted to go into foreign service. And so that was my that was my career objective at the time. And so my graduate degree, I finished my master's degree and then pursued a career in foreign service. Well, like many other people that came out around the same time I did in grad school, which would have been the economic decline of 2008 to 2010. All of a sudden I had this piece of paper that said I was qualified to do something in a master's degree, which used to be kind of the golden ticket to unlock pretty much anything that you wanted. And all of a sudden I was applying for jobs and interviewing with people who were very, very tenured in the field. And so I really didn't stand a chance. I passed all the exams and all those things, but despite that, I didn't stand a great chance. So I went back into what I knew. I had a brief stint in banking, and it's not something I really enjoyed. I work for a great company, but it's something I really didn't enjoy. And so I went back into customer service, and I had always worked in retail since I was 15 and worked for Blockbuster Video and Best Buy and Hilton Hotels and Postnet and several other, pretty large retailers, both big box and small box. And I
Mhm.
really enjoyed that. And so I took a job with another clothing retailer, VF, which is one of the largest manufacturers of the clothing in the world. And I was in a store under the North Face brand and really loved it. Great company to work for. I really excelled at it. I had a lot of fun. quickly moved into the management team at that location. And I was kind of at this interesting point in my career where I knew I wanted something more and, or maybe not more, but something a little bit different. I've always been fairly entrepreneurial. I had started several businesses on my own, from tutoring business, a bar, just a number of things that I just kind of like making my own decisions. And sometimes when that happens, when you work for a very large company, the first and foremost thing you learn is structure, which is great. And so you learn you get the purview of how these large companies operate, and you can use those lessons down the line. So that's exactly what I did. So approximately February of 2014, Matt and Sean, the founders of Shuckin Shack, called me. And by this time, they had opened a second restaurant, and I had actually helped them build that restaurant because I have construction experience too. And they called
Wow.
me and said, "We're thinking about opening another one, or we're actually thinking about franchising. We don't know where you fit, but we think you fit somehow." And I
Wow.
said, "Okay, well, I guess I'll accept the job." And so that's what I did. And really, the first year was interesting. They really didn't know what they could pay me and really didn't know what the job would be. So, for me, as someone who is pretty naturally curious, I would say, and I like to figure things out, so to speak, I moved down to Wilmington. I slept on Matt's couch for a year and stayed with some other friends as well. And the business grew, and then we started opening new franchise locations. And I got promoted to CEO over 10 years ago at this point at 29 years old. So it was kind of
Wow.
a surprise to me, but it's been a fun ride.
Amazing. I love the story from being friends with them and a customer and helping them build the second store or restaurant. And I love the concept of Shuckin Shack because it's I love oysters and I love beer and I think that it's such a great
Absolutely.
combination to have and enjoy at, you know that at a place in North Carolina and you guys are all over the place, right?
We are in North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Illinois, and Maryland. So
That's
we've
awesome.
grown quite a bit.
I'm gonna have to go to the one in Naperville,
Absolutely.
which is a ways for me, but I think it'll be
It's worth the trip.
worth the trip. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. I love that. And I love your humility in this whole process. And I love how serendipitous it was. They didn't know what they were going to do with you, but they knew you were going to be profound. And now you're running it for the last 10 years and doing an amazing job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think a big lesson in entrepreneurship is take the chance, obviously. And I've always looked at entrepreneurship and starting a business and or helping really start a business and run a business and see it grow. It's crazy to say that, I don't really have a backup plan. I mean, the worst that could happen is that I just go back to working retail, and I
Yeah.
love that too. So my
Yeah.
backup plan is a win too.
Yeah. So how much do you get involved in the ins and outs of the restaurant business, or do you just handle the store owners? What do you do exactly?
Sure. So that's changed quite a bit over the years as our headquarter staff has grown. Obviously, I was employee number one, and so at that point, I was handling pretty much everything from doing anything from working with banks on financing the restaurants all the way through the architectural process, construction process, and then when we get open, I was on the training team because again, we didn't have employees, and so I had to learn how to cook, and I had a little bit of bartending experience, so that helped. But really, I was kind of a jack of all trades, pretty much a generalist in that I had to know a lot of the business and be fairly agile as a part of that process because I think especially looking at the opening of a restaurant or opening any business, that 6 months into it, you know, getting the location open the 6 months prior is really arduous. It's really difficult, very
Mhm.
stressful. And in the franchising sector, we're the franchisor, but we're essentially trying to train and impart knowledge on franchisees who come from various backgrounds. I mean, very, very wide swath of backgrounds. And so I think that, you just have to be kind of a generalist, willing to take risks. You have to be a really good learner. And
Mhm.
that has been helpful for me in that, like I said before, I'm a naturally curious person and I like to figure things out. And so
Mhm.
I think that's been, you know, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is you should listen a lot. And so
Mm.
that's helped me a lot in my process. But as far as what I do now, a lot of what I do, and we have an operations team at this point and a marketing team, and so a lot of what I do now is still on the front end. And so I'm helping our franchisees select locations. I'm helping them throughout the finance process. I'm helping on the front end of projects and looking at construction breakdowns
Mhm.
and essentially, looking at financial profitability and the viability of the location, the viability of the market. We're working on, really, really in-depth demographics when we're choosing markets. And so a lot of my work is that. And then, excuse me, of course, that's financial reconciliation on top of that. So once the location gets open, where is it tracking? What is it doing? In what areas is it weak? And what areas is it strong? And so I work with each of my teams here on doing those things.
Wonderful. So, so hands-on. Now, when do you guys help? So you said you find you help the franchisees uh, find the location and help them through, basically handhold them through the process.
That's right. Yeah, it's a pretty in-depth process, and it's steps A through triple Z. And so
Sure.
there's a lot to do when you're opening any new business, but especially a restaurant, anything that's going to be public facing, where you not only are concerned about the four walls, you're concerned about the plumbing and electrical, and you're concerned about the kitchen equipment, and you're concerned about the layout and the efficiency and all of those things. And some of our franchisees come from varying backgrounds in that some of them have restaurant experience, some of them don't. And
Mm.
so a vast majority of them have never leased a commercial space. A vast
Wow.
majority of them have never built a restaurant. And so it's quite in depth. And I think it's important that we put in work on the front end to make sure that we're trying to make smart and efficient decisions throughout that whole process so that by the time they get open, they're pretty happy with the product.
Absolutely. I love that proactive approach. That's our approach to and everything. Because, we all know that being proactive is a lot financially, and everything else is a lot more lucrative than having waiting for something to happen and then stepping to fix it, especially when you deal with people with such wide array of backgrounds, when they don't know certain things, when you know the ins and outs and help. I'm sure that's invaluable. What has been some of the biggest challenges you're facing today?
Sure, I think, in a quote unquote post-COVID world, the restaurant, I would say the restaurant landscape has changed a lot.
Hmm.
And there was this, if you imagine it as a swinging pendulum, it went from, okay, we have this traditional restaurant space, there's full service restaurants with servers and bartenders, and then during COVID, that pendulum experienced a massive swing to the other side, which was we need it to be completely convenient. It's going to go online. We need to make sure, because we can have limited number of people in the restaurants. We've got to make sure that people still have access to our food. We've got to integrate with delivery apps and all of those things. And now you're seeing that pendulum swing back again, in that a lot of folks are coming out and saying, you know what, turns out the customer experience matters. Well, it's always mattered. And we've taken a little bit different approach over COVID. We didn't really integrate with any delivery apps. We kind of bet that people would want to get out of their homes. They would want to travel to us, and they would be okay with pulling up at the curb, and we wouldn't lose that cut that might go to a delivery company. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Was the landscape has changed tremendously. Obviously, closures, you're seeing a lot of kind of legacy brands, if you will, experience bankruptcy or financial challenges. And so, and on top of that, looking at the landscape as a whole, project costs are up.
Hmm.
It's more expensive to build. Food cost has come back down. We reached a fever pitch of food cost probably somewhere around August of 23, somewhere in there. Our food costs for everyone across the entire restaurant landscape from,
Hmm.
let's say, mid 22 all the way through August, September of 23 was pretty unbelievable. It was
Yeah.
more and more difficult to do business. And then we're talking about labor as well. And
Mm.
so that the landscape has changed entirely. And so I think the people that have seen the other side, including us, you just have to be agile. You have to be willing
Yeah.
to make quick decisions, even if you don't know the outcomes, and you have to be
Mhm.
able to test the systems, and then pivot when you need to.
Absolutely. I think a lot of businesses and those that didn't pivot are the ones that are suffering. And some of these legacy brands probably didn't. We don't see that because in the line of work that we do, we help people pivot and become agile. And so when people come to us, they already have that mindset. But we see it all in all industries. It's not just the food industry, but the old ways of leading and running a company is just gone.
Right. I think there's still some axiomatic elements that are similar in that a CEO of a much, much larger legacy brand and myself, we probably have more in common than we have, differences. But I think that the ability to have an agile system is very, very critical when you experience anything from COVID to food challenges to labor challenges. It doesn't really matter. You've got to be able to say, this is not working and it needs to be changed right now. But
Mhm.
at the same time, you also have to make sure that whatever brand promise that you are making, whether
Mhm.
it's Shuckin Shack or, ABC Restaurant Group or legacy brand XYZ, it doesn't really matter, that
Mhm.
you can still deliver on that brand promise. And so if you're promising a great experience or a fun Friday night or, a packed restaurant where everybody can come in and everybody's welcome and they, just get that vibe that everyone knows in full service restaurants, but the operational initiatives or things that you're doing don't allow you to do that, then you're not capitalizing and you're not delivering on that promise that you've made.
Yeah, yeah, and that customer experience and has to match their expectation. To your point, exactly. I love that. And what would you say, what would be your advice to the up and coming leader in terms of, I know that we've talked about some of the challenges you faced and flexibility and being agile is one of the biggest attributes. Is there anything else that you think leaders need to know these days coming out or even,
There's a lot. I
yeah.
mean, I think it's don't chase everything. Not everything works for your brand. Just because there's a technology or a product or a menu item or something that's popular right now, that doesn't mean you have to chase it. It doesn't mean you have to do it. It still needs to fit within your brand guidelines. And then I think the biggest thing in advice is listen more than you speak. It's so critical that once you get to a certain level and I'm further and further removed from the restaurants, the more we grow, that's just the fact of the matter. I'm busier but in a different way, and you've got to listen to frontline. You have to listen to the people that are spending time in the four walls of your locations, whether it's restaurant or retail. It really doesn't matter which industry you're talking about, but those are the people that are going to be the ones that are going to affect change within your systems. And you can't take this, I guess, hegemonic approach of saying, you know what, I know it all. This is what we
Oh,
should do. You've got to listen to others.
uh, what a great point. I love that. It's so true. It is absolutely true. How many employees do you guys have now?
In our system, if you include, all of our franchise units and employees, we're well over 500 at this point.
Okay, so that's a lot. Yeah. And how many people in leadership besides you?
Sure. So we have here in my corporate office, there's me plus six others.
Okay, so total of seven running the 500
Mhm.
people. That's a lot to manage. I'm sure that you keep busy
Yeah,
without
it's
a
it's
doubt.
something new every day. It's exciting. I love it. No 2 days are identical for me, and I can do monotony for a certain amount of time, but
Mhm.
I think monotony, especially as someone who is curious and who loves to learn and loves to do, it can be difficult for my personality type.
Yeah, Jonathan, I love your curiosity. I think that is a sign of intelligence, and capacity for growth. And you're also growth minded, so you're an excellent leader. If you had to, thinking about all of your journey thus far, what would you have done differently, if anything?
Gosh, I don't know that it was necessarily a chronic mistake that I made, but I think one thing that I would have done differently is vary my messaging. And I think that's really important, is that people don't hear things identically. you and I may listen to, or maybe watch a movie or listen to a song and pull completely different things out of that movie or song. And so to expect, whether it's, my six other folks here with me or any one of the massive employee base that we have, to assume that they're all going to get it the exact same way in a singular deliverance of message is short-sighted. And
Mhm.
I don't think I did a good enough job of that early on. And I always felt like I think I depended a little bit too much on the get it factor and
Mhm.
saying,
Mhm.
oh, if I deliver this message this way and it's clear and concise and it's direct, everyone's going to pick up on it. And that's
No.
just not the case. And so I think varying communication is one of the biggest things that I would probably redo. I would do it earlier on.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, that's such a good point because perception is reality and people's perception. I mean, that's one of the things that we coach on is that when, people don't see things as things are, people see things as they are themselves. So you're right. So there's everybody's basically walking around with their own virtual reality glasses, observing the world. And as a marketer, as someone who's promoting a business message, whatever, you need to be cognizant of that. And I think that you're right. I think the sooner you dial that in, the better. And it's constantly evolving and changing.
That's 100% correct. I say perception is reality all the time. Really, quite frankly, on our side, when you're looking at, from top and trying to cascade your message down, is that your intent really doesn't matter.
Hmm.
What really matters is how it's received and then how it's acted upon. And so, because that you're right, that someone's perception and someone reading of that message, that's the way they see it, and how they implement it is their reality. And so the intent, you may have all the best intentions in the world, but if you're not varying that message and making sure that you can give this, I guess, differentiated approach to communication and differentiated approach to leadership and operations, you're not going to reach everyone that you want to reach. And it's just not going to hit the way it should hit.
Precisely. Precisely. And the more you're dialed into the people, the better you're going to get at that because it's evolving. Everybody's growing at their own pace, and so because we see the world as we are, and we're evolving, so something that may work for my listening today may not work in a month or two because
That's
I
exactly right. And I think that's an important leadership lesson is that I think you've got to take a deep, I think every leader takes a deep look within themselves and says, if you and I are alike, and that if something doesn't hit the way I want it to hit, what did I do wrong?
right.
You know, that's my natural, that's my first move. I try not to be quick to blame others in that and saying, okay, that was not what I expected. That was not what I intended. What did I do wrong? And I
Mhm.
think that's also one of the things that I probably should have done earlier on. I don't know any person on earth that's in any form or capacity of leadership that would say they've done everything perfectly or called it all correctly. I think there's a lot of internal looking.
Absolutely. It's an inner job. Leadership is an inner job. It really is. It's inner as well as, that once you do the inner work, the outer work is easy because it's that authenticity that lands with people. It's the more authentic a message is, the more it lands because people are just so tired of fluff right now, Jonathan. Wouldn't you agree?
100%.
They're
That
just
I
done.
mean, I think the new generation, Gen Z, if you will, gets knocked on a lot for, screen time and, TikTok and all of these things. But one thing that's taught us, and I think the new generation is incredibly intelligent, is with authenticity.
Hmm.
And so the old, company man or company woman message doesn't work.
Nope.
You have to be yourself. You can only create a facade for so long. If you don't do what you say you're going to do, and your lifestyle and the way you live and the choices you make, and that doesn't match the messaging that you're putting out, no one is going to believe you
Nope.
because you may not lose your integrity, but certainly the authenticity and the altruistic nature of what you're doing is not going to translate well if you're not who you say you are.
Absolutely. And the messaging even. I think what you come up with as a authentic marketer, as an authentic person who's doing the communication, it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. It's really the delivery, and the delivery is different in wording too, so you can manicure that in such a in an elegant way that really projects what you're trying to put across, or promote, or engage the clients with, or customers with.
That's right. Yeah, that differentiated delivery is important. That's the differentiated messaging in and of itself is that if I say, you know, we're definitely doing A, B, and C. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you may take that a certain way. I
Mm-hmm.
need to explain why we're doing that or why I believe that's the right choice. I need to ask for feedback. And so there's a stark difference in having differentiated messaging that can reach multiple audiences than just, dictating things.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And it's and to be frank, I've been around for a lot longer than you, and I've seen that old leadership projection in all kinds of ways, and it's never really worked. It's never really worked.
It works, very seldomly, I think. I think if you are very
Yeah,
first to market with a new product or service and you have no competitors whatsoever, and you are both inventing, designing, and implementing whatever that widget may be, then I
yeah,
think there's probably a time period that it works then. But the
yeah.
second you have a competitor, you're going to lose a lot of steam if you take that approach in leading your company or whatever it may be.
That's such a great point. Thanks for driving that home. I really appreciate that. So let's pivot now into the future. What are some of what is your vision for the future for Shuckin Shack, and what is it that you want to do? What is it that what kind of where do you want to take the company from here on?
Sure, I say it all the time when we get asked often, how many locations do you want to get to before you sell or before do another brand or whatever it may be. I just want to open healthy restaurants with good people. That's what I want to
Mm,
do. That's my
mm,
plan. If that means we open another 500 restaurants, then that's what we're going to do. If that means we open another 5 restaurants, then that's what we're going to do. I think
mm,
we're in a really unique position on our side, and my partners and I are in lockstep in that we kind of want to do what we want to do with the
mhm.
people that we want to do it with.
Yeah.
We don't have this necessary need to accept every check that could be written to us for a franchisee and wherever it may be. We want to be in business that we like. We want to be in business with people that we like, that we trust, that we think can deliver on that brand promise, like I alluded to earlier. So
Mhm.
that's what we want to do. We want to grow the brand with the right people, with good people, and we want to open healthy restaurants, and we want to make sure our customers are satisfied. That's what we're after.
I love that answer, Jonathan. I want to open as many healthy restaurants, whether 5 or 500. I love that. That is such a great vision, because what you care about is the health of the restaurant, not the number. It's not a
That's
number
right.
game.
I mean, you if you think of it, I often speak like many others in analogies. If you're looking at the outfield wall when you're trying to hit a baseball, you're
Yeah.
not going to hit the baseball.
Yeah.
Just hit the baseball when it crosses the plate.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my approach is that when the baseball crosses the plate, I want to hit it. I don't want to be concerned about how far I'm going to hit that ball. I just want to make contact. And so that's kind of what we're after.
Wonderful. And what is the gap? What is the gap from where you are now from to where you want to be?
The gap as far as numbers or just generally speaking.
Just generally speaking.
Yeah, it varies. I think the franchise industry is very, very interesting in that, it would be different if we were opening all company units, right? That, we could find a capital partner with enough money that we could finance opening a new locations and it's restaurants that we operate, that we run, that we own.
Mhm.
Franchising is very interesting in that you are imparting knowledge, and I say it often in that franchising is the business of convincing others because that's what it is. It truly is. And that, Kathy, if you wanted to go open a restaurant, you could read a few books and you would kind of know what to do, and you could go do it on your own. But you might not make a great franchisee, or maybe you would because you say, you know what, I know I could probably do this on my own, but I need
Mhm.
some support system behind it. And
Mhm.
I'm willing to take a little bit of a cut on my profitability because of royalties and marketing fees and some of the things that are paid to us, because I just feel like I need something behind me. I need a bigger brand behind me. And so there's naturally a gap when that happens. A lot of times in brands that have been around a long time, they grow a
Hmm.
little bit slower. You see a lot of brands, I mean, a ton of brands. I could name more than a dozen, which I will not do, that I mean, I've been in this industry for 10 plus years now, and that, they go out and they award 1,000 territories in, 18 months, or 500 territories in 18 months, and they may
Wow.
open 40% of them. So let's say they awarded 1,000 territories, they opened 400 units in the following 3 years. Well, 7 years later, and they're down to 25, 30
Wow.
units because they're not making, for one reason or another, they either, got caught up in this check chasing, if you will. Anyone
Mm-hmm.
that could darken a doorway and write a check and have that money in their account, they're accepting them as a franchisee.
Yeah.
So I think the gap exists uh, for how you create it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you can control that gap by staying focused on the things that matter to your brand and the things that matter to you. And, what does that brand promise? And can I deliver it effectively to my customers and to my franchisees? And what is my threshold for that? How many people can I reasonably bring into my system that can do that exact same thing? And
Yeah.
so the gap is only as large as a gap that you create.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you put that because it's such it's true. It's absolutely true. And I agree with you that that it's about what your intention is, what's important to you, and having clarity around what you want and who you want to do business with and who you want as part of it. Sounds like you're running a big family, and you want to make sure that these people that you're bringing in, these guys, are really coherent and aligned with you guys. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
Or
I don't use the word family because you can't get rid of family. I use I use the word partner a lot. So we're looking for partners, and that, if you and I were business partners that we had a disagreement, we could figure out a way to go our separate ways.
yeah.
If you were my sister, you know what? We still got to stick through it. We don't
Yeah.
have to do that in our industry. And so, but we are creating very much so a system in which all of our franchisees feel like partners. And while it's not a joint venture agreement, it's nothing like that. We don't finance any of their locations or have any sort of ownership stake in their individual businesses, because all franchise locations are individually owned and operated. They're still our partners because they're looking for an exchange in the things that they need. They need better
Mhm.
costs on their food. They need better marketing. They need digital buy. They need advertising. They need a number of things. And so that creates a natural partnership within the franchisor to franchisee relationship. It's not a partnership on paper by any stretch. And they're definitely not employees either, because we can't tell them who to hire, who to fire, what to do, anything like that. But naturally, they're leaning on to us for certain things. And then we're leaning back on them and saying, how's it working? Give us feedback. What can we do better? What do we need to improve? So I think there's a natural partnership that comes in that.
Love that. Yeah. Thanks for the distinction. And I love the way you think of it because it's true. I mean, family, but a lot of businesses refer to their partners as families. But I
Yeah,
think it's important to know the difference. Yeah.
I'm very hesitant to say that.
Yeah.
I don't like using the F word family when we're doing training in our new locations. Even then,
Yeah.
we don't even use that, and that's something that we talk with our franchisees about, is that be very, very careful about calling your restaurant employee base a family.
Mm,
They're not a family. You
mm,
can't fire your sister and never see them again.
yeah.
But if they're a partner, then you may come to a disagreement with that person and say, this is not working out, we should go our separate ways. And
Yes.
so we're very, very careful about using that family word. And I like the partnership aspect because it allows us to keep clear heads and saying, you know what, I'm not going to make an emotional decision over this. I know what the
Mm,
right thing is. And
mm.
that choosing that may come at the expense of our friendship, but I feel like that's in the best interest of all of us in the goal of our partnership.
I agree. It's a more authentic way of being, I
I
believe.
think so. I
Yeah,
think so.
because it goes to your approach, which is a no nonsense leadership type, which is I really like that because it's clear cut. I'm the same way. You're direct, straight shooter, and you don't really don't like to placate people by calling them family when they're really partners.
That's right. I feel like I owe that to people. A lot of people, whether I hire them or whom, I mean, I've hired a bunch of people in my career, and I'm upfront with them. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hiring you. We're going to train you. We're going to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, you may be terminated or you may decide to quit. And
Mm-hmm.
that's perfectly okay because I
Mm-hmm.
don't expect every employee to work out. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I owe that to people that I hire. I think that's important. I
Mm-hmm.
think at termination, it's important to tell someone why they're terminated. And yeah, that's just been the approach that I've taken. I think that if you set expectations and are clear and direct in your messaging to others, then it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for this not knowing where you stand. And I think that's the worst place to be. That's almost worse than not having a job, is
Right.
not knowing where you stand.
Exactly. Exactly. It gives people a sense of security and understanding that exactly where they stand, what the situation is. What is your secret in hiring people?
Personality. That's it. I would rather have someone that is, excited and on fire and really is after really understands the goals of the company. You may not agree with them on how they're going to approach that. I would rather have that person, even if even if they don't have all the necessary experience to do whatever the job description says. I would rather hire that person
Hmm.
than hire someone who has, all the experience on paper,
Hmm.
but is just not excited about the opportunity. I'm not looking for button pushers. I'm looking
Hmm.
for people to help build a better button that pushes better.
Mm,
And
I
so
love that.
that's been, I guess, my secret, or the one of the things that I've learned over the years. I really believe in finding the right fit for your team, because we both know if you bring in the wrong fit for any team, no matter how tight you are, that can completely erode the entire team environment. That's
No kidding.
completely erode it.
Yes, the culture is can be ruined with one bad apple. It's so
100%.
true. So true. So what would you say is your purpose?
My purpose, it personally, I mean, I try to do something with purpose every day. And so
Yeah.
it could be something very, very simple, or it could be something rather complex. But I think my purpose, and I think I've known it for a long time since I was a kid, is that I want to make others better. And I think that for me, from a leadership standpoint, I think that's the way I approach leadership, and that I'm not a field general. I never have. I don't have to raise my voice. You won't ever catch me yelling at someone or berating someone. That's just not the way I do it. I just don't believe in that. And so my purpose is making others better and supporting my team. And so that's what I feel like from a leadership standpoint and career standpoint, that's what I was put on earth to do.
I love that. Of course, I wholeheartedly believe in that as well. That's one of my values as well, is helping others become better. Why is that important to you, Jonathan?
I think that people oftentimes, when, you've been to a dinner party or a cocktail get together, or whatever, what's the what's the second question that comes after what's your name? It's
What do you
always what do
do?
you do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I think that so often their entire identity is wrapped up into that. And there's
yeah,
nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with that. If you're really proud of what you do,
Mm-hmm.
then I think that it's important to share that and be
Mm-hmm.
passionate about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important to make others better because I want them to be proud of what they do.
Mm,
And, when that second question at that cocktail party or mixer or dinner party comes up, they don't just say, I'm a whatever it may be, I'm an accountant.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They say, I work for a really cool company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm in the accounting department. We have a lot of fun. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just view that as such a special interaction. And I think that when you can empower people to, number one, which is something I will die on this hill every single time, which is allow people to make their own mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and then help them and coach them and be open to a different approach to things. But when you can do those things, I just think it makes people better. It gives people more autonomy over the things that they're doing. It's something they can feel proud of. They don't
Hmm.
feel like a small bolt in a cog in a
Hmm.
large gearbox as a part of a car. They feel like they're really, really important as a part of the movement of that system.
Yeah, and they, of course, they contribute that more, and
That's
more
right.
of them shows up for work when you do that. So elevating people is so important.
That's right.
And what kind of, how do you do that? Do you do that by yourself, or do you have a system by which everybody, do you have, how do you do that exactly?
I think going back to differentiated communication, it all depends on it all depends on the person. That people receive motivation and people are led in different ways. I have people on my team here that I can be extremely direct with. This is the expectation. This is what we should be doing. This is the way we should be moving. Here's A through Z of how the approach is. How do you feel about that? Let's get started. And then I have other people who are the exact opposite, who
Hmm.
if you vary your communication in the form of this is where I feel like we're headed, give me
Hmm.
feedback. What do you feel? What do you think? What are you hearing? Ask a
Hmm.
lot of questions. If you're everyone approaches everything differently. And so I think trying to get the best out of people also requires, from a leadership standpoint, and understanding that you may have to approach everyone differently. You may have certain things as a part of how you lead that are tried and true that will never change, that will
Hmm.
never change.
Hmm.
But how you deliver those messages, I think that's how I do it. I mean, we've used OKRs, objectives and key results. Traction by Gino Wickman is obviously extremely popular. A lot of people use that, and we use a kind of a sub form of that. But for
Hmm.
the most part, I think that differentiated leadership styles allow me to listen a lot and get feedback, and then decide how to implement that, or at least integrate that within the team environment.
That is so, you spend a lot of time and energy, and you invest a lot in in the people who report to you and lead with you. Is that correct?
I try to, and admittedly, at times I'm not the best communicator. I think that as we grow and as we have grown, things just get busy, and
Hmm.
so I find myself at times like, holy smokes, like it's been a while since I've done a one-on-one with this person. I don't really know how they're doing. Our
Hmm.
primary communication form is email.
Hmm.
And especially if I'm on the road, I travel quite a bit. That's difficult. That's kind of a reset for me, and saying, you know what, I need to put some time into this person. We need to do a one-on-one. It doesn't even have to be in a formal setting. Let's go grab lunch. Like, let's go
Right.
grab a coffee or a drink or whatever it may be. Let's just talk through things. And
Yeah.
so I think I can do a better job. I have tried to do a better job of trying to recognize those moments before they happen. But I do try to put a lot of care and trust and oversight into the people around me, because they have a lot on their plate too. I
Sure.
am, it may seem like I might be the busiest person in the office. I am not. Like, let me
Hmm.
be very clear. There are people in here that are busier. Granted, the
Hmm.
task is different, and they may
Hmm.
not have as many people to lead, or they may have no one to lead, but there's still stuff that has to get done so that our restaurants can be successful and make our customers happy.
Yeah, I mean, once you get past 100, people, it's hard. You need help and support in keeping it all aligned. And there's costs associated with that, but there's also costs associated with replacing them, and when you don't notice things and things go haywire, right?
That's right. It's far more expensive not to spend. And so it truly is. And that, and going back to our conversation about, having the wrong person in your system, it's going to cost you a whole lot more to replace that person. And so that's why when you asked me what's the secret sauce or what's the magic for hiring, and when I said personality, it truly is. I feel like I can teach you the widget. I feel like I can teach you and train you and all of those things, but I think there's certain innate characteristics and certain soft skills that are really difficult to figure out, and you've got to spend time with that person. And a lot of those soft skills as a part of the interview process, like, don't, it's baloney to ask people their strengths and weaknesses. It's baloney. It's complete baloney. Just ask them how they're doing. Ask them what they want to do. Ask them about their hobbies. Ask them things that are very qualitative and indicate soft skills and indicate innate characteristics. And I think I have learned that that will be more of a key indicator of how that
Mhm.
person is going to function within your
Mhm.
current work environment than anything else you can do.
You're 1,000% correct. 1,000% correct. As someone who's studied human behavior for the last 24, almost 25 years,
Hmm.
absolutely. I mean, it's there are I mean, there's so much truth in what you just said in the last minute or two, because I don't call them soft skills, I call them necessary skills.
That's right. That's right.
Because hard skills will get you in the door. Soft skills is what gets you elevate above everybody else. And the more you're tuned into that, the more successful you're going to become. That's the bottom line. That's what leadership needs to understand. Moving forward, it's going to be more and more important because Gen Zs care about this stuff.
That's right. They do. And just like I tell every single one, whenever I'm on any interview, when I'm interviewing anyone for any position or I'm asked to sit in and then given my chance to ask questions, I always tell them every single interview, if you are sitting here, it means you can do the job. And I have
Mm-hmm.
no doubt that you can do the job. But that also
Mm-hmm.
means the person coming in behind you can also do the job. The
Mm-hmm.
reason that you're here is we want to figure out if you're a good fit or not. That's all that we're
Mm-hmm.
after. And you
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be interviewing people that can't do the job. You
Right.
should be interviewing people that can do the job and then figure out how they fit within your current system.
Absolutely. Couldn't put it better myself. Thank you, Jonathan. So
Yeah.
what should I order when I go to the restaurant into your restaurant in Naperville?
Well, as a person
Order.
that started as a customer, I can promise you everything is good or I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
My go-to, I often order ahi tuna and I get it blackened rare, and then I do a side salad or low country boil is fantastic. Our shrimp and grits, now that it's December and it's much colder there than it is here.
Mhm.
Our shrimp and grits, I don't think it would be a stretch for me to say it's the best on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So I like both of those things. And what should I drink?
Oh gosh, well, personally, I'm a little bland, I guess, when it comes to drinks. I'm a tequila guy, and I like it neat. But we have fantastic signature cocktails, fantastic signature cocktails.
Okay. All right. There's not a favorite beer on tap that I should have.
Well, so that's one of the cool things that we do within our system is that I actually don't even know what they have on tap there because a lot of our beers are going to be local.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that varies per location. Of course, we have your
Cool.
standards that a lot of other restaurants would have that are national brands, but you may go there and find something that you can only get in Naperville or you can only get in the Chicagoland area.
That's awesome. I'm going to take my sons to Shuckin Shack. Maybe, hopefully, if not during this break, because they're both in college, for sure in the summer.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Jonathan, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your authenticity, for your strong leadership, and sharing your world with us today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Kathy. Appreciate it.